Hi, I'm Adam. Welcome to Jazz Hacks with Truer MU. This isn't so much of a jazz hack as it is me having an opportunity to explain something to you that might be confusing. It's the difference between describing the distance between two notes in terms of musical intervals versus space intervals. This can get really confusing. Now, what is a third? If we say, hey man, I'm playing a third. Well, here's a major third. It's called a major third because if I play a major scale and I count with it, 1, 2, 3, well, there's the third, first, second, third. That's how we measure intervals. We count the first note. We play the first note, 1, 2, 3. That's one way to measure the distance between two notes. Major third, minor third, perfect fourth, augmented fourth, perfect fifth. These all come out of the scale, and you always count the first note. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's move over to another way to think about distances between chords, which is whole steps and half steps. This is really easy to see on the piano. Any note that's next to another note is a half step away from it. Here's C. If I go a half step up, I go to the very next note. Notice I didn't go to the white key because the black key's in between them. Half step. Half step down, that's got a white key next to it. So it isn't anything to do with black and white keys, it's just whatever's next. Half step up, 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 half step up. So we could use half steps to measure intervals. Of course, a whole step is 2 half steps. That's a whole step. 1 half step, 2 half steps. But don't worry about that. Just stick to half steps for now. Let's say I wanted to measure a third for one of my students. They don't understand scales, and I want to tell them how far apart a third is. I say, well, it's 4 half steps apart. Here's 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps, 4 half steps. But here's the confusing thing. When you're counting half steps, you don't count the first note. 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps, 4 half steps. 4 half steps away, it's a distance. 1 distance, 2 distances, 3 distances, 4 distances. As opposed to major third, where we start with 1, 2, 3. See, when you're using musical intervals, you count the first note. 1, 2, 3, a third. When you're using distances like half steps, you don't count the first note. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. This can be very confusing, so it's worth watching this over again to make sure you understand. If you're describing an interval in terms of how far apart it is physically, using half steps. If you're using it to describe how far apart it is musically, using intervals. And whether you count the first note depends on which one you're using. Is your mind reeling? Is this too much theory for you? Why don't you check us out at truermu.com, where we have an entry-level music class just for you. You can know nothing. Start at the very beginning. If you know something but don't feel like you know enough, come check us out and see what you can fill in as far as holes are concerned. We think Truer MU is a better way to learn the piano, and we think you'll agree. Come check us out.